Nimrod.
Yeah, I heard Nimrod used to cut people's heads off,
Nimrod was
put them on
vicious.
sticks and let them bobble around like little Christmas ornaments.
Yeah, Nimrod was ruthless. That's where Christmas comes from. That's what Christmas is, the celebration of Nimrod, the rebirth of Nimrod, through his son Tammuz.
He was a king?
Yeah, he was a ruler too.
Who was he king to?
He was over Babylon, like 3 other cities. It was a whole area conquered. He was a mighty hunter.
What was his genealogy?
He came out of Ham.
So he was black.
He was Ham, yeah. All the sons of Noah were black. Well, all 3 of them were black. Shem, Ham, and Japheth, including Noah. They were all black. But he came out of Ham.
He was a Hamite.
Hamites, yeah. The so-called Africans, South Africans.
I always get it called a Hamite.
Libyans, yeah.
I always get called a Hamite.
Really?
Yeah. I don't get it. People they'll look at me. They look at me because I shave. They'll call me a Hamite.
Okay. No, man. We ain't supposed to be shaving though. We're supposed to keep our beards. That's a sign of our manhood. Go ahead. Read some more. Can I present? Yeah. Finish yeah, go ahead. Bring out scripture.
Alright, this is Revelations 18 and verse 21. And it says, and a mighty angel took up a stone, like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down.
Right, this great city's going to be thrown down. And how is it going to be thrown down? Because America's about to enter into a another World War, which is called, they're not calling it, but it's going to be World War III. It's going to be the final war for America. It's going to be the last war that they're going to. That's why they're pushing with Syria, Egypt, Israel, all those Middle Eastern nations. You know what I'm saying? America's involved with that through the NATO and all of that. Once they enter into that, Pakistan, of course, China, Russia, and Iran are going to fight back. Right? And we're going to destroy this place by fire.
Add on to that real quick. Like, it says right here, and a mighty angel, right, took up a stone, like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea. That stone is representing that millstone in that sea. The sea represents the people right here. Revelation 17 and 15. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse is, were peoples, and multitudes, the nations, and tongues. So that waters, that represents the people. Right. That millstone, that represents that nuclear destruction.
Well, it's a milestone. It's a millstone.
Yeah, that's like, so that's the vision that John. That's the vision that he saw before that was going to happen.
Because in Revelations, it was like a movie being played out for John. You know what I'm saying? All these future events that was going to take place, it was playing out. Actually, what we've lived 2,000 years later, he saw 2,000 years before, previously. But he saw it all played out. So he was calling stuff like lions and millstones and waters. He didn't have the vocabulary for it. He didn't know what it was. He saw fighter jets. He didn't know what they were. He called them like locusts. You know what I'm saying? With heads of lions and stuff like that. He didn't know what to call it because they didn't have that kind of technology back then. So he saw all these things played out, but he wrote it down to the best of his ability to capture everything that he saw. You know what I'm saying? So it's like asking you to write the iPhone.
You said ancient man seen the fighter jet?
That's what he saw. Go to Revelation chapter 9. He saw World War I, World War II, and of course World War III before they happened.
Before it happened.
Absolutely.
So it was Revelation written
by John. John the Revelator.
Did say John.
Yeah. So he's seen all these things play out, and he's recording it.
Revelation 9, you said?
Yeah.
Revelation 18 and 9.
No. Chapter 9.
Oh. Chapter 9.
until I think it's like 16. But make sure.
So this is all, everything that's going on today's time is already written, already predicted. Most High knows what's going to happen way in the future.
Start at verse 6 real quick. I'm not gonna get this a lot of detail in this. I'm not gonna break it all down because it's a lot, but it's basically talking about World War I. Go ahead and read chapter 9, verse 6.
Revelation chapter 9 and verse 6. And in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it.
Right, because there was a lot of war at the time. All over the world, men was taking drugs. The proliferation of drugs was kind of widespread in the world, different parts of the world, especially for soldiers coming back from the war. They had a lot of injuries. They were traumatized. So when it says men sought death and couldn't find it, hey, you know, men was just getting high.
I hear him.
Left and right.
Back one more time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And in those days shall men seek death.
In those days, men shall seek, in those times of war, go ahead.
And shall not find it.
Keep reading.
And shall desire to die. And death shall flee from them.
Right.
In the shape of the locust, in the shape of the locust, were like unto a horse prepared unto battle.
Right. See, he said the locust was like unto the horse prepared unto battle. You ain't never seen no locust. A locust is little, you know, prepared for battle. What he's talking about is those locusts, they fly. He's talking about those fighter jets during those times, because that's when fighter jets were introduced during World War I. And they had all that armor on them, and they had artillery with them. They had machine guns on them, and they had missiles. He's going to explain that, but he's not going to use the word missiles and guns.
I'll be sure this is not just King James.
What's that?
Is that a King James version now?
Of course. Of course it is. Keep reading.
And on their heads were as it were crowns of gold.
Right.
And their faces were as the faces of men.
Because I don't know if you ever remember seeing them. I can't remember the name of them, the jets, but the men they sat in them. You know, you might have had two of them in there. You ever seen the movie Red Tails?
I know what you're talking about.
When you see the men in there, you can see the men's face in there when they sat down in those fighter jets. You know what I'm saying? So they said they had the face of men because you can see those faces. Go ahead.
And they had hair as the hair of women.
And because they had those on their helmets, they had tassels on it. They had like little fringes like this on it. So he said it looked like the hairs of women, but that's what they had on their helmets. Go ahead.
And their teeth were as the teeth of lions.
Talking about power, how they strike. Go ahead.
And they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings.
The sound of their wings. Go ahead.
The sound of chariots of many horses.
With the sound of what?
Chariots of many horses.
So there ain't no locust gonna give you that sound where it sounds like the chariot of many horses. That's talking about when you see a plane fly by, you can hear the roar in it. You can hear it go across the sky. So that's what he's explaining to the best of his ability, but he saw this prior to it happening. All right, that's pretty much on that. Matter of fact, let's jump to verse 16, because he talked about missiles and everything.
Verse 16.
Yeah.
And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000.
Right. And that ain't talking about no army. That's talking about an arsenal of weaponry, which are called intercontinental ballistic missiles. 200,000. That's 200 million missiles. All right. Go ahead.
And I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses and the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire.
Right.
And Jitsis.
What's your pearl?
Brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions.
The heads of the horses were the heads of lions. Go ahead.
And out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone.
There you go. Out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone. So he's still talking about war activity. You know what I'm saying? It's not literal. You know what I'm saying? But he's describing it to the best of his metaphor. He's describing it to the best he could at that time. He's using that language at that time. You know, so everything was written for a foretime. For our learning. Give me Romans 15:4.
You mind if I answer with passage?
Sure. So that's Revelations 19 and 17.
Not Revelation 9.
9, excuse me.
And 17.
And 17. Slip of the tongue. There's Revelations 9 and 17. But give me Romans 15 and 4. Because everything that was written before time was written for our learning. So we can go back and say, okay. And that's why we know the Bible to be true. Compared to any other book. The Quran, the Book of the Dead, Keep It Anigas, whatever. This book here has many prophecies that have been fulfilled and that came true, and we live in prophecy now. There's no other book that compares to this book.
Romans 15 and 4.
Yes.
For whatsoever things were written aforetime.
Whatever was written in foretime in previous years, go ahead.
Were written for our learning.
It was written for our learning. Our being the Israelites. Only Israelites gonna be able to get this knowledge, retain this knowledge, and be able to teach this knowledge. Because it was written for us to grasp. It's written all around us. It's like it's a narrative with us. You know what I'm saying? It's coming from our perspective, from our not necessarily our perspective, but it's coming from our time, position in history, and period in the world. The world was made for us. That's what the Bible said. The world was, everything in here was made for us. You know, everything was made for the Lord. He made it, but He turned it over to us. But once we broke the commandments, broke the holy covenant with the Lord. Now we're suffering a punishment. Once we come back out of this punishment, He's gonna turn it back, and we're gonna get to our righteous place. Right. Go ahead, keep reading.
For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
Right, through patience and comfort of the scripture. Because to read this gives us comfort. You see what's going on, we catching hell all the time, but to be in the scriptures gives us a better understanding. You ever been frustrated about something, you ain't know why? You know what was going on, why you do this, why they do that? Then when you got the understanding, you say, I understand. It consoled you a little bit. It may not change the outcome, but at least you know why it was done. You know what I'm saying? So,
like this one here.
What you looking for?
With Joseph.
Joseph was sold into slavery to the Egyptians.
No, but his brothers found him.
Okay, and he told them that. He said, what y'all meant for evil,
He ended up telling him.
God meant for good.
And they didn't believe him at first. You feel me? And still his son is talking about his father.
Right. Because the Most High set that up for them to be saved through that. You know what I'm saying? And He set them up to be a righteous ruler who when later will become their enemies, which those Egyptians, they're Hamites. See, one group of people, one group of black people enslaved another group of black people.
Their lead god is a dog.